Good afternoon, Los Angeles. Good afternoon, and a big shout out to all educators out there, parents, grandparents, guardians, and students. So happy to have you with us in this virtual space. I also want to give a shout out to our members who are voting today on the tentative agreement with provisions for how they can do their work safely in a hybrid environment. I'm talking about resource specialist teachers and special education itinerant services, special education teachers at comprehensive secondary campuses, career and transition centers, and special education centers, preschool for all learners, preschool comprehensive, early childhood, special education infant preschool, preschool itinerants, and Carlson Home Hospital educators, school nurses, psychiatric social workers, and pupil service and attendance counselors, secondary counselors, teacher librarians, arts and physical education itinerant teachers. That's a big, diverse group of folks doing critical work with our students. UTLA members can look for voting results via email later this evening. Today's edition of Facebook Live is focused on the safe physical return to schools and the steps every school is taking to prepare for our classrooms and school buildings for students and families. We are on the brink of a big moment. Next week, the first physical school campuses in LAUSD will reopen their doors to students and staff after more than a year of virtual learning. To those school communities that are first to go back in, we are with you. Everyone is having all of the feels: anxiety, excitement, and exhaustion. This transition involves intense work and planning. Like everything during this pandemic, it hasn't been easy. LAUSD has more than 1,000 schools with 75,000 staff members and more than 600,000 students. There will be bumps in the road, but this past year has shown us just how resilient our learning communities are. As we go through this process, stay connected with your colleagues, be patient with yourself and with others, and be vigilant about critical safety measures in the agreement with LAUSD to keep you and your students safe. Please know that your union has your back, and we will stand with you in the progress for all of the bumps, hurdles, and joys that will come with returning to our beloved classroom space. This week, UTLA chapter leaders and steering committees met to cover protocols and strategies for a safe return and enforcing the UTLA LAUSD agreement, which has some of the highest safety and health standards in the nation. Vaccines have shown to be incredibly effective against getting infected and preventing severe illness if one does become infected. Educators have been able to get vaccinated since March 1st, and LAUSD will be opening 25 school-based vaccination centers to help the families we serve. That's great news. But many of our students' parents and family members may not be vaccinated for some time and are therefore at greater risk should there be a COVID-19 outbreak in our schools. The safety protocols in our agreement are intended to prevent such an outbreak. Here's what we mean by safety protocols. Everyone coming onto campus will be screened and will be required to wear a mask. All staff and students will be tested regularly depending on what tier the county is in. Hand sanitizer and washing stations must be provided throughout the school. 6 feet social distancing or physical distancing will be enforced. Ventilation standards will be followed, including only using classrooms with higher rated HVAC systems and with fans going 24 hours a day. Now, I want to lay out a few of the key steps to make sure the protocols are being followed. Chapter leaders are encouraged to do a campus walkthrough 1 week before a physical return. Your chapter leaders have a safety checklist to make sure every element of our safety protocols are in place before schools open. And then there should be another walkthrough the day before students return to make sure any issues and deficiencies have been corrected. Every school must have a COVID task force that meets weekly. The UTLA chapter chair or designee will serve on that task force, along with the school nurse, plant manager, COVID-19 compliance officers, and other staff. The task force is how, once our schools are up and running, we make sure they stay in compliance with safety protocols. Even if there are no urgent issues, the task force should meet every week. Once schools are up and running, the safety checklist should be reviewed every day to make sure every safety element is in place in your school. At big schools, this work should be divided among chapter action team members or other colleagues. None of us has ever gone through school during a pandemic before, and we need to be patient with one another and with our students. We all might need to be reminded about distancing and appropriate protocols. If a student is not wearing a mask, we want to encourage them to put one on before we take the issue any further. We should try to make sure that compliance is not enforced in a punitive manner for our students. If a room does not have hand sanitizer, we want to ask administration to fix that before we make a formal issue out of it. Resolving issues through direct communication and quick action by staff will help keep the entire education community safe. We also need to be sure to distinguish between deficiencies that present urgent threats and deficiencies that need to be fixed but do not cause imminent danger. A classroom without functioning ventilation is an imminent danger. A school without masks for students is an emergency. On the other hand, a situation where one of the markers for physical distancing has fallen down is a problem that needs to be fixed, but does not rise to the level of imminent danger. The goal is to find collaborative solutions and resolve problems swiftly so that we can all feel confident in the safety of our school campuses. Most issues will likely be solved or resolved at the school site level, but there is a process for higher level action if needed. The idea is to resolve issues in a manner that allows people to feel confident and safe at their school site. It can't be said enough. Going to school during a pandemic is going to be a new experience for all of us. Let us be patient with each other, with students, and with ourselves. When we step back into our physical schools, we are taking a step into our new normal, and we must define what that new normal looks like now and into the future. Our neighborhood public schools should be well-resourced places that are rich with well-equipped educators, manageable class sizes, and wraparound services to meet our students' emotional, social, and health needs. They should be also modernized structures that ensure safety and science are the standard, not a luxury. In this new chapter of public education, we have an opportunity to get things right and actually work together to ensure that all of our students, no matter their color, creed, or zip code, attend equitable neighborhood public schools. This new normal must be racially just and include investments that provide our students access to art, music, dance, and drama as a part of their daily learning. In LA, educators, parents, students, and community members work together throughout this pandemic to ensure that we based our physical school reopening on science and safety. We fought tirelessly so that all educators and school-related personnel were fully vaccinated before returning to the school building. We also saw to it that proper PPE will be distributed to all those entering the school building, that stringent social distancing protocols are maintained, and that our return be based on COVID-19 spread in the community and not just the school building. These hard-fought measures were put in place not to delay reopening or to make educators as difficult, but to ensure that we actually eradicate COVID-19 in the communities hit the hardest, those of Black, brown, and working families. We may never know the true impact of our actions, but our work together since day one of this pandemic, I know, has saved lives. While some families have been able to tackle this pandemic while working remotely, other parents and guardians have had to hug their babies each day before braving the front lines. Whether working on location or remotely, all parents had to trust that their children would stay engaged, focused, and committed to learning during these unprecedented times. As an educator and single mother of a fourth grader in our district, I have spent the last year with my son at home in virtual classrooms, where we often worked through our struggles and discovered new ways of being present each day with each other. Some families aren't as fortunate. It goes without saying, however, that underserved communities and communities of color have borne the brunt of this pandemic. Our community has suffered disproportionate number of infections, far too many deaths, and irreversible economic despair, all while Black and Brown students have faced the greatest educational challenges. The fault lines of public education in America have been and continue to concern race. It is time for that to change. As we turn the page on this pandemic and begin to chart a new course, we must fight to ensure that federal, state, and local investments end up in our students' classrooms. Here's what I mean when I say that. Less than a month ago, President Joe Biden signed into law the American Rescue Plan, guaranteeing almost $125 billion for K through 12 public education. These funds are to be utilized to prepare schools for physical reopening, improve air quality in school buildings, acquire education technology, provide mental health supports, and address underserved students' interrupted learning. Our neighborhoods are in need of meaningful and well-deserved investments. Our students enter school buildings that often need meaningful repair. Our neighborhoods and surrounding communities lack access to broadband internet. Oftentimes, our classrooms lack full-time counselors, librarians, school nurses, and other critical supports for our students. Despite all of these challenges, our students and their families have been showing up and putting in an incredible amount of effort to learn during these unprecedented times. In this new chapter, there is no time to lower our defenses or sit on the sidelines. As educators, parents, and community members, we have a moral obligation to stay in this fight to ensure that our students and their public schools get the necessary resources they are owed to thrive and grow. I am so proud to be in this fight, in this moment with you all, as we dream big and plan for our babies. I want you to have a great weekend, folks. Much deserved rest. Take some self-care time, and let's stay UTLA strong, because together we rise.